Hey everybody, welcome back to Home Life 365. Today I have another bread recipe for you. Today we'll be doing a sweet cinnamon bread, and I hope you really enjoy this one. I know I have a lot of bread recipes on my channel, and I just hope everyone takes this opportunity to learn how to make bread. So I will bring you in for the countertop shot as we put the bread together in the bread machine. Okay, I'm going to start this recipe the same way I start all of my bread machine recipes. And I know a lot of people have questioned in the comments and said that their bread machine recipes always say to add the dry ingredients first. And I've explained before, I do it this way with the liquid in the bottom and the yeast. And I do it this way to make sure that my yeast is still active. I'm going to start out with a cup of milk, and I have whole milk, but you could use 2%. And I have a clean meat thermometer. I have microwaved the milk for about 40 seconds. And I hope you can see the meat thermometer there. Looks like it's registering right at 100.8 degrees. 101.5 when I stir it. That'll be perfect. You do not want your milk or water when using yeast to be over 110. That can kill the yeast. I'm going to pour this straight into the pan. Ideally, your milk or water temperature will be above 90 to 95 and under 110. That was cold milk out of the refrigerator. I just put it in the microwave for about 40 seconds, and that got it right up to temp. Now this recipe is going to call for half a cup of sugar. So I have already measured out a half a cup of sugar, but I don't want to put all of that sugar in to make sure my yeast is active. I only want some. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon out of the half cup measure into my milk. Now save that sugar because that will be what you add later when you add the flour and other ingredients. And this recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of yeast. So I'm using the Fleischmann's active dry yeast. And I'm going to put 2 teaspoons right in on top of the milk. Just spread it around some. Now I'm going to close the lid on my bread machine, and I'm going to come back in about 10 minutes. And hopefully it will be a little bit foamy, a little bit bubbly. I am just going to kind of mix that in just a little. Make sure that yeast is down in the milk. So I will close the machine, and I'll be back with you in about 10 minutes, and hopefully our yeast will be activated. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes, and I'm just going to take a peek. All right. And I hope you can see that on the camera, that the yeast is foamy, and that little bit of sugar made them happy, and they are good and alive. So the next thing I want to do is add the rest of my wet ingredients before I add my dry. So I will start with an egg. The recipe calls for 1 whole egg, and I'm just going to crack it into a separate bowl. Always crack your eggs into a separate bowl just to make sure that they're good and there's nothing icky. And I'm just going to give this a little whisk to make sure it's broke up and a little bit mixed. I'm going to pour that right in. I'm also going to add to this a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And this is my homemade vanilla extract. If you've never made vanilla extract, it's really easy. If you just take vanilla beans, and you can put them in a mason jar. I don't know if you can see in there. I split the vanilla beans, dropped them in the jar, and then you can fill the jar with vodka or spiced rum or a combination of both. And I keep it in a dark cabinet where it's cool, and I shake it a couple of times a week for the first couple of months. And it makes a really good rich vanilla. As you use it, you can just top it back off with the alcohol you used in the original. Now I've got all the wet ingredients added in, so I'm going to start with my dry ingredients. Now keep in mind, no matter how you make your bread, whether you put the liquid on the bottom or the liquid on the top, you always want to separate your yeast from your salt. So since my yeast is in here already, I'm going to add all of my other dry ingredients before I add in the salt. And I'm going to put the salt on the very top to keep it separated. Salt can kill yeast, so that's the only thing you really have to be really careful about. And if you do it the opposite way, where your dry ingredients are on the bottom, then you want to be sure to put your yeast on top with the liquids. I'm going to add to this 3½ cups of bread flour, which I already have measured out here. So I'm just going to put this in. I also want to add to this the ½ cup sugar that I removed a tablespoon from. And I'm just going to put that right in. I'm also going to add 1¼ teaspoon of cinnamon. So this is a ½ teaspoon, so I'm going to do 2 full and then 1 that's about half. So that's 1¼ teaspoons of cinnamon. I'm going to add a teaspoon of sugar, just plain white table sugar. And that's what I wanted to keep separate from the yeast. So you can see that the flour created a barrier to where the salt didn't go straight into the yeast. And I'm also going to add 1/4 cup or half a stick of butter. I'm going to cut this butter into smaller pieces and just add those chunks right in. So that's a ½ stick of butter. Okay, so that's all the ingredients added into the bread machine. And the next thing I want to do is just set my bread machine. And on this bread machine, which is a Hamilton Beach Artisan bread maker, the sweet setting is on 9. So I want to go to my menu and I want to go to 9. So 9 for sweetbread, and I'm going to press start. And that's it. So I'm going to let this go, and I will bring you back when it's done. It's been about 1.5 hours since I turned the bread machine on the sweet setting, and my bread machine does not bake on the sweet bread setting. So it has gone through the mixing, and it's gone through rising, and I'm going to give you a peek. You can see in there that it's risen. So now I need to bake the bread. So for this machine, the menu 13 is bake. Okay, so I'm setting the machine to bake, and it defaults to 1 hour, and I've reduced that down to 40 minutes. I hope that's going to be enough time, and I'm going to just hit start, and I will bring you back in when it's done. We are back. The bread cooked for 40 minutes, and then I opened up the lid and I've let it set for about another 20 minutes to let it cool down so that I can handle it. So I'm going to pop this out of the bread machine. Hopefully it's not too hot. It's not. I'm just going to turn this out onto a pan. The pan is still warm, so be careful. So you can see that the top of the loaf did split, and I wonder if I had made an X in it, if maybe that wouldn't have split so bad. Making an X in the top of your bread allows the steam to escape, and it possibly would have kept this from cracking. But I'm not going to worry about the crack. It's still going to taste good. So let me give this a cut. All right, so this is really moist on the inside. You can see the outside is nice and brown. This is just what was stuck to the bottom of the pan. Get rid of it. So it got nice and brown around the sides. And I hope that doesn't look burnt. It's really not. And you can see the inside's moist. Okay, so I've got the bread out. I've got it buttered. I'm going to give a little taste. That's good. If you love cinnamon and hate raisins, as I do, and you want an alternative to the cinnamon bread, cinnamon swirl bread that you can get at the grocery store that always has raisins in it, this is a great alternative. This bread would be really good toasted with cream cheese. It's very good warm with butter. It would also make a very good French toast. So I hope you will try out this recipe. It's easy to make. It's very tasty. And as always, if you like this video, I hope you'll hit the like button below. If you like the content, hit subscribe. And please check out the other bread recipes that I have in my playlist. They're all bread machine. They're all simple. And I hope you'll come back to see us.